Okay. Oh, hello and welcome. I'm Karina. This is Share Your Story with Confidence, an online community focused on creative reading, creative writing, and creative thinking. This is the third and final online workshop of 2020 and focusing on end-of-year storytelling. And I have invited community members, friends, family, I don't think there are any family members here at the moment, to join us and share stories. It can be an original short story, a folk tale, or a fairy tale. And the idea is through sharing stories, we're going to get to know each other a little better, learn about each other's experiences, maybe traditions and or cultures. So my plan is to put people's names on a piece of paper and kind of randomly draw names in terms of determining the order of the readers. Don't worry, I will go first. I will go first. Now, I know not everyone wants to or has a story to share. So could you just put a thumbs up in the reactions if you are reading, and then I can know. Okay, great. So we have Aaliyah got one. Talita. Okay, great.
Oh God, I don't know how to put a thumb up in this thing. Oh God, I'm supposed to be an expert in ed tech. How do you put a thumb? How do a thumbs up? Oh yeah, there we are.
And Caroline. Okay, so that's 4. So I think that's 4. Is that right? Okay. So including myself. Okay, great. Perfect. And what was I going to say? Yeah, I will go first, then I will choose a name. You can introduce your story, maybe give me an idea of how long it's going to be, say maximum 10 minutes if possible. And then we'll have a couple of minutes for kind of comments, reactions, possibly questions. Yeah, I think that's it. So is everyone here? I think there's one new person joining. Kim, you have to unmute yourself to say hi. Can you say hi? No. Okay. Hi, Kim, we see you. Is she there? Okay. So I have, on the Share Your Story site, I have 2 short stories there. One really short, which is what I'm going to begin with. And then if there's time at the end, I can read the other one. So this is called Again. It's just you and me now. I boomerang the words towards the bright blue sky, and they fall back down like a golden shower onto baby's crown. We have been together on and off for 2 years, and the intense devotion I feel for her is reciprocated through gurgles and giggles and trusting eye winks. She pokes me with her forefingers. She points at our home. Yes, I beam, our new home. We are together forever this time. Baby resting on hip, I survey our temporary accommodation. We have inherited an overgrown green mess, barely passing for a garden. She begins to wriggle, signaling a desire to be put down. I sense I shouldn't put her down. I sense if I do, something bad will happen. I get muddled. The phase passes and I release her into the grass jungle. I spy her leading an expedition of ants. She crawls over wormholes and chews on petals. A wide grin reflects her happiness amongst the flowers and plants. And my expanding heart pushes up against my chest. Then there is that noise again. The sirens. There are those people again. The authorities. The sky is overcast. I scramble baby into my arms. What has she eaten? Who is responsible? They bark. The garden is my babysitter. It is full of hidden treasures. The thoughts jump out before I can catch them. I'm muddled. Dangerous, irresponsible. Take her away. My heart shatters. Time apart. Again. The end. I can see some claps. But I can't hear them. You can unmute yourself. Unmute yourselves.
Well done, that's amazing.
Well, thanks. So that's just a really, really short story for us to begin. I'll officially start.
I don't have a story.
Sorry?
I don't have a story. You just told me to come on, so hi.
That's okay, Kim, no problem. You can also listen and make comments. And this is the comments time. So we have a couple of minutes. If you have, any comments, how do you feel? Did you connect to anything? You're welcome to say.
Okay, so clearly I don't know you. I don't know anybody else on here. I came here as a connection through another connection, and I'm really glad to be joining all of you. It's lovely. As to what I felt from the story, the beginning of it had this kind of very soft introduction that felt very enveloping. That was the first thing I felt from it. The second was, it was really interesting to sort of go through hearing it, thinking, oh, first of all, that it's an actual baby. And then second of all, oh no, recognizing that it's probably a puppy of some kind, rather than an actual baby. And I think something else then, the sort of towards the end, as there was the introduction of sirens and authorities and so on, for me, there was a slight disconnect. Possibly because there wasn't enough something, don't know what, to tell me that that was coming. And so something in the shortness of the story made it jump from one to the other. The fact that it jumped intrigued me. So I want to know more. And I think in the shortness of the story, it just jumped in a way that wasn't connected for me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
May I?
Yes, Charlynne.
It was too short. I was getting into it. I thought, okay, and now? Then you stopped. Yeah, I didn't get the puppy thing. I don't know what was going through my mind, whether I'm likely, I don't know, maybe get to the age where my mind wanders. In my head, what the scene that had been created was something like, I don't know, I was thinking the Mexican border, illegal immigrants, some woman had got through with her child, was reassuring the child, and the authorities had caught them. So I was on a more dramatic level. I thought something like that.
Thank you.
I'll say something. Is it me who's talking now?
Yes, Kim, go for it.
Thank you for just letting me know about this a few 5 minutes ago. But I really loved the story. And I just kept on thinking of a beautiful garden with long, luscious grass and lots of flowers. You didn't mention flowers, but as soon as I think of Mother Nature, I just think of everything that's green and luscious and evergreens. And I kept on thinking, you don't want to put the baby down because there's holly around. they might crawl into the holly, and it's dangerous. And it's prickly. It's attractive. The red berries, they're dangerous. I know that's going away from your story, but that is what was going on in my head. That the baby's going to get lost in the holly and the long grass and Mother Nature. And that's a good thing. And that's what I came up with. But I just loved it. but it did change very quickly. I thought, wow. So thanks for that. Was it a baby?
You're welcome. Well, yeah, it was actually a baby.
Okay.
but I mean, the thing is, of course, you can interpret it in your way, and you get what you get. And for sure, I could write more, but that's just what came to me at that time. So I just wrote that.
I liked how it flowed as it was almost poetic in the start of it. And so it started off really, really descriptive, and you could, envision everything happening and what the baby was seeing, what the narrator was feeling and seeing. But I think like everyone said, yeah, because it was short, it did need to rush the story to get to the end. And I think because of that, key points, because I'm trying to visualize what's happening and following it through, and then you feel like you're jumping from scene to scene like a movie trailer, where it that's how it in my brain anyway, that's how I was seeing the scene unfold, like a movie trailer, like all the key parts. And that makes you want to go watch the film, but it doesn't tell you anything as it's not a complete story because it's a trailer, but it's all the highlights, and you want to watch the film and see the rest, or read the actual story itself, and fill in the blanks that the trailer misses out. So it was really intriguing, and quite descriptive, but yeah, it left you feeling, well, what's happening more. But I guess that's the thing about a short story. It should keep you engaged, and you should want more. And I think you did that. Yeah, a great movie trailer.
Yeah, thanks. That's it's good feedback. Now it's clear to me. Okay, it's really abrupt. It's very abrupt, and of course there could be more. So thank you.
It works if you want intrigue. It works.
Yeah. Drama. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to shake these and choose a name. Let's see who's first. Caroline. That was the first name that came out.
Right, I'll just unmute, that would be helpful. Okay, I mentioned when I introduced myself that I'm just back from the Gulf. I've been in the Middle East for a good few years, and I've been on the same course that Karina's been on, and had the same creative writing experience as her. And as part of that course, we were encouraged to write some short stories, and I've chosen one that is it's inspired by my stay in the Gulf. In actual fact, it's a sloppy attempt, because obviously it's not my culture. I've culturally appropriated Arabian folk tales and written my own, but the style is supposed to be kind of that style. It sort of suits the storytelling theme of this event, because one of the things that I learned from my students in the Gulf is that the storytelling tradition has persisted there to quite a great extent. The boys that I taught had kind of lost the habit, but their grandparents still told stories. They would get together in often gender segregated manners, and somebody would tell a story. So my little story, the one that I'm offering up today, is it's that kind of style, although the theme for me is very, very modern. But I don't know whether, I mean, the actual message in it, if you like, is much more contemporary. Just a sec till I get to the start of it. Okay, and the story is called The Rose Gold and the Pearl. And here it goes. Plucked from the cool brine of the ocean bed, half a mile off the coast of Sri Lanka, the unassuming oyster had yielded a pearl of outstanding size and quality. bought by a Persian gem merchant, notoriously sharp of eye and ruthless in his bargaining for a fraction of the true worth. The pearl had been wrapped in a square of raw silk and transported by mule, then ship, then mule again in an engraved silver chest, along with rubies, emeralds, sapphires, and other lesser pearls to the city of Isfahan. The magnificence of the pearl dictated his destiny, for it was unthinkable that His Majesty should see a pearl such as this adorning the neck or forehead of one of his subjects. And so it was that the pearl found himself lying exposed on his bed of raw silk on an ancient alabaster table that served as the workbench of the master goldsmith to the reigning Shah of Persia, Tahmasp I. The arrival of the pearl, as beautiful as the moon itself, sent a ripple of excitement throughout the palace workshops. A succession of wide-eyed gold silversmiths, lapidaries and engravers, as well as the precious metals and gemstones awaiting transformation into jewellery and ornaments, admired his luminescence. The pearl, however, remained inscrutable in his reluctance to acknowledge the speculation which simmered around him. Whatever his ultimate I just say my internet connection is unstable. Can you still hear me okay? Hello?
We can hear you. It did go a little.
Did it go? Yeah, I got a message that it had gone. Okay, sorry about that. Whatever his ultimate destiny, be it crown, necklace or brooch, everyone understood that an immediate marriage between the pearl and one or more of the gold ingots would have to be arranged. Silent and aloof, he ignored the excited whispering of the ingots as they each weighed up their chances of being united with the pearl for all eternity, either alone in a smaller piece, such as a pendant, or as part of a harem of ingots, fashioned together in a larger piece, such as a girdle for the ample royal belly. Instead, the pearl found his attention drawn to a small bar of rose gold lying alone on the dusty blue velvet lining of a lidless bronze coffer which sat in the farthest corner of the table. The rose gold, unused to any consideration whatsoever, blushed deeply under his gaze. The pearl was both charmed by her unusual colour and intrigued by her separateness from the other gold ingots. That evening, when the sun began to slip behind the city walls, its parting rays transformed the rose gold into the vibrant coral of the pearl's birthplace, just long enough for her to seem familiar to him. By the time night washed the workshop in inky blackness, the pearl found himself wondering if he and the rose gold had met before, for although she had barely said 2 words to him, he felt that he knew her better than he had ever known any other being. By morning, he was deeply in love. This unexpected turn of events did not escape the attention of the other occupants of the royal workshop. "You're making a terrible mistake," hissed one of the yellow gold ingots. "She's 1/4 copper. We are all 24 carats. Do you understand what that means?" When the pearl did not respond, the ingot continued, egged on by the others. "We are pure, and she is not." Her lack of purity was undeniable. It was the copper alloy in her which endowed her with the warm pink hue. The others shunned her because of it, but now the attention bestowed on her by the pearl had transformed the burden of diversity into enviable uniqueness. The rose gold's elation was to be short-lived, however, for when the goldsmith arrived for the day's work, the first thing he did was to place the pearl in the palm of one hand and a 24-carat yellow gold ingot in the other. His gaze flickered back and forth between the two, and finally, with a click of his tongue, he formalized the betrothal, placing the ingot and the pearl side by side on the raw silk. He then turned his back on all the metals and gems, and hunching over a sheet of paper, began to design a necklace fit to grace the throat of the Shah's youngest and, for the time being at least, favourite wife. The Pearl continued to gaze longingly at the rose gold, looking past his yellow gold bride, who in turn vacillated between self-satisfaction for having been selected and disappointment over her groom's blatant indifference to her. The rose gold, well practiced in self-containment, mourned silently the union which would now never take place. That night, an earthquake struck. It rattled vases and pots, cracked mirrors and tiles, and toppled many pillars and statues throughout the city. In the palace workshop, it sent a wooden cabinet full of Chinese jade crashing down from a high shelf onto the bench where the Pearl, his unloved bride-to-be, and all the other gold ingots sat. When the goldsmith arrived, breathless, to inspect the damage done by the spasming earth, he was horrified to discover that the ingot he had chosen as a setting for the Pearl, along with many of the other yellow gold ingots, lay scratched and scarred under the heavy cabinet, and that the Pearl itself was nowhere to be seen. Where was it? Perhaps it had been crushed to powder and scattered by a gust of wind. Then he saw it. The first tremors of the earthquake had caused the Pearl to roll to the far corner of the workbench, coming to a halt against the side of the coffer in which the rose gold sat. Inside the receptacle, next to the bar of rose gold, lay a large, sharp-edged jade nugget. The stone had struck the rose gold quite violently, but she, being an alloy, was stronger than the yellow gold, and so her beauty was unmarred. The master goldsmith tugged slowly and rhythmically at the flesh under his chin as he contemplated the warm blush of the rose gold juxtaposed with the cool lustre of the Pearl. 1 month later, the artisan finished uniting the Pearl and the rose gold in a ring so exquisite that for 400 years, the hands of haughty queens and spoiled princesses, nerve-fogged brides and relieved bearers of male heirs, as well as the favourite mistresses and courtesans of the monarchs of 2 continents. The ring was admired, coveted, bought, sold, inherited, stolen 3 times, fought over, and in one instance, killed for. Through it all, the Pearl and the rose gold stayed united. The Pearl, cradled in the adoring embrace of the rose gold setting, the rose gold fulfilled the knowledge that she had been chosen above others, and both sharing the belief that destiny one night had shaken the entire planet in order to bring them together. The end.
Don't forget to unmute to clap.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I really enjoyed that. Any comments from the floor?
Yeah, that was beautiful. I really like how you gave the Pearl and all of the inanimate objects like human qualities. I really like that.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, was all of it, I know you said you appropriated it from a story there, but how much of it was fiction? How much of it is part of the story of this ring? I assume there is a real ring.
Well, no, the story's invented. It's just
wow.
Yeah, there's the style, because in that period we'd just been doing in class. I tried to reawaken in the boys an interest in, a lot of them are Bedouin boys I was teaching, and they do have that tradition. They sit around a campfire, they sit around in tents, and one of the elders will tell tales. And there are traditional stories, but the tragic thing was this younger generation had forgotten them. They started, when I asked them as part of their English lessons, tell the story, they'd start off, they go, but then I can't remember how it goes. So I was trying to encourage them to go back to the grandparents, get them to tell them stories. So I was still thinking about this period when I had this writing assignment to do, and I thought, you know what, I'll do an Arabian Nights style type of tale. It was supposed to be romantic. That was I think that was it was supposed to be a love story between two inanimate objects. I think this was the task we were given, but I'm not very romantic. So I'm not very romantic.
I think like what Charlynne said, it was really ingenious how you personified all the inanimate objects, and literally we can identify with these, or where we're rooting for these inanimate objects. It's crazy how you did it, and the actual human character, was almost like a footnote. It was the inanimate objects that we were so invested in their journey and what would happen to this.
The theme that I was really interested in is something that, as a sort of literary theme, I get, or a life theme, I suppose, is lots of people kind of believe in destiny and they're fatalists, and they think, I don't know, like in relationships, for example, they think some sort of divine intervention, as it were. And I don't believe these things. I'm totally unromantic. And I think what we do tend to do, we maybe grasp at events and we charge them with meaning that maybe really wasn't there, just coincidence. It was just random. But then when we tell our story, what happened that night because of the earthquake. Because I've done that myself. I said I don't believe it. I've done that myself throughout my life. I've attributed events with meanings and significance that probably were not there. So I was playing about with that idea more than anything else. But I'm glad you liked it. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm speaking and I didn't unmute. Like everyone else, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The commitment and the dedication to like sticking to the theme. And I thought, oh, are you going to jump out of it? But no. And so just you're immediately in there and watching and seeing and following and believing. So I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to add that as you were starting to read, I had my eyes closed so I could picture what you were sharing. And actually your writing has transmission in it, in the sense that it's not just the words you use, it's the cadence you use that transmits a sense of a workshop, transmits the sense of being surrounded by stone and having a brazier in the corner. You didn't say that at all, but it's there in your story. And I think there's something very powerful about learning to imitate a storytelling style from another culture in order to preserve it. And I think you have successfully inhabited enough of that storytelling style. And I'm used to hearing it from a different perspective, but I think you inhabit enough of that storytelling style to do it justice.
Oh, thank you.
In a short way, but yeah, it's really lovely.
Thank you so much. Really kind of you.
Thanks.
I just want to add something. I really like rose gold, and I really like green jade stones, because I have got a Japanese godmother, and I was always given gifts of rose gold and Japanese jade stones. I have a lot in my jewelry box. So this story reminded me of her, and she's still alive. She's 84, and she's in Alicante. So I can't get there. I can't get to Spain, but it really made me think of her strongly. And she's Japanese, and she also likes rose gold and the jade rings and rubies and diamonds. Typical Japanese. And I loved it. I just loved that story so much.
You're so kind. That's really kind of you.
Can I add one thing? I really liked there was a line you used about the pearl and being part of I can't remember what the word you used, like a belt for the chief or the king or whatever, but you use
a girdle, yeah.
A girdle, thank you.
Yeah.
But you said, you know, he would be part of a harem of all the other, and I thought that was just genius choice of words, because you can, like, not only did you personify the jury, but you still kept them in their role as, you know, jury, but also there was the gender element too. Like, he would be the male, and there's this harem of all the other. It was just
yeah.
words. Like, really envision what you were saying.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. That's really kind of you. And it's kind of culture appropriating a style of storytelling, I guess. But I mean, the Arabian Night. Who wrote the Arabian Nights? That's a stupid question. I should know that. The answer to that. It's a collection of stories. I mean, we've stolen in I don't say British culture. We've stolen a lot of Eastern literary and artistic culture on so many treasures, as it were. So there is, it kind of exists in English language, tales which have been borrowed from other parts of the world. And I don't know. There's good and bad in everything. It's just always a shame to lose anything, really. Everything enriches literature, as it were. So yeah, it was fun to do. It's fun to try.
Thank you. Thanks, Caroline, and thanks to Aaliyah, Kim, Sandra for your comments. Actually, Caroline mentioned a course about us being on the same course. I don't know if you heard her say that, but just to say that, yeah, we did the same masters. We're English language teachers, and one of the modules that we took at different times was technology enhanced creative writing for advanced learners of a foreign language, basically. And a part of that, we had the opportunity to write. So anyway, just to mention that, and actually that experience for me was an inspiration, or part of an inspiration, for starting Share Your Story. Share Your Story with Confidence. Right, we've got 3 more. Okay, let's see. That's Talita. Over to you.
It's the first time I tell a story. I'm a bit nervous, but I think I can do it. So this is how night came from the sea. Long, long ago, at very beginning of time, when the world has just been made, there was no night. It was always daytime. No one had ever heard of sunrise or sunset, starlight or moonbeams. There were no night creatures such as owls and tigers, and no night flowers that secretly open their petals at dusk. There was no soft night air, heavy with perfume. Sunlight always filled the sky. The light jumped from the coconuts at the top of the palm trees, and it gleamed from the backs of the alligators wading at the edge of the sea. Everywhere there was only sunlight and brightness and heat. At that time, the great African goddess Iemanjá dwelt with the depths of the sea. And Iemanjá had a daughter who decided to marry one of the sons of the earth people. With sorrow and with longing, the daughter left her home and in deep ocean and came to live with her husband in the land of daylight. Iemanjá's daughter loved her husband, and she loved the magic of daylight that he showed her. The shimmering sand of the beach and the rows and rows of cocoa and sugarcane baking in sunlight, and the sparkling jewels and feathered costumes worn in harvest festivals. Night. Oh, sorry. But with time, the light became too bright and hard for Iemanjà's daughter. The sight of the workers bent over in the fields day after day hurt her eyes and her heart. And finally, even the brilliant colors worn by dancers at the festival burned through her drooping lids. "Oh, how I wish night would come," she cried. "Here there is always daylight, and in my mother's kingdom there are cool shadows and dark, quiet corners." Her husband listened to her with great sorrow, for he loved her. "What is this night?" he asked her. "Tell me about it, and perhaps I can find a little of it for you." "Night," she said. "It's like the quiet after crying or the end of the storm. It is a dark, cool blanket that covers everything. If only we could have a little of the darkness of my mother's kingdom to rest our eyes for some time." Her husband called at once his 3 most faithful servants. "I am sending you on a very important journey," he told them. "You are to go to the kingdom of Iemanjá, who dwells in the depths of the sea. You must beg her to give you some of the darkness of the night, so that my wife will stop longing to return to her mother's kingdom and will be able to find happiness on land with me." The 3 servants set forth. After a long, dangerous journey through the surging waves of the sea, over the cliffs of the underwater sand, and past the razor-sharp reefs of coral, they arrived at the palace of Iemanjá. Throwing themselves at the feet of the goddess, they begged her for some night to carry back with them. "Stand up, you foolish men," she commanded. "You can beg a mother whose child is suffering?" And without a second lost, she packed a big bag of night for them to carry through the cycling currents of water. "But," she said, "you must not open this until you reach my daughter, because only she can calm the night spirits I have packed inside." The 3 servants pulled the big bag alongside them as they swam back through the cool, swirling sea. Finally, they emerged into the bright sunlight of the shore and followed the path home, bearing the big bag upon their heads. Soon they heard strange sounds. They were voices of all-night creatures squeezed inside. The servants had never heard this strange chorus of night screeching before, and they shook with fear. The first servant stared at the screaming bag of voices and began to tremble. "Let us drop this bag of night and run away as fast as we can," said the second servant. "Coward," said the third, trying to sound brave. "I am going to open the bag and see what makes all those terrible sounds." He laid the bag on the ground and opened its sealing wax with his teeth. Out rushed the night beasts, the night birds, and all the night insects. Out jumped the stars and the moon. The servants ran terrified into the jungle. Then the gentle hum of the night creatures began, and moonbeams flickered across the sky. The creatures of the night appeared before her, the owl hunting by moonlight, and the tiger finding its way through the forest by smelling the dark, damp earth. The soft air grew heavy with the smell of night perfume. To Iemanjah's daughter, this coming night was indeed like the quiet after crying of the end of the storm. It was like dark, cool blanket covering everything, and just as if a soft hand had smoothed her tired eyes, Iemanjah's daughter fell fast asleep. She awoke feeling as if it were about to sing. How rested she was after the coolness of the dark of her night dreams. Her eyes opened wide of the brightness of the glistering day. In her heart she knew she would find peace in her husband's land. And so, to celebrate the beauty of her home, Iemanjah's daughter made her 3 gifts. To the last bright star still shining above the palm tree, she said, "Glitter star, from now on, you will be our sign that night is passing. You shall be called the morning star, and you will be announced with the bird of each day." To the rooster standing by her, she said, "You shall be the watchman of the night. From this day on, your voice will warn us that the light is coming." And to the birds all about her, she called, You singing birds, you shall sing your sweetest songs at this hour to announce the dawn of each day. To this day, the gifts of Iemanjah's daughter helped celebrate each new sunrise. In Brazil, the early morning is called madrugada. As the madrugada slides onto horizon, the morning starts reigns in the sky as queen of the dawn. The rooster announces the day approach to the sleeping birds, and then they sing their most beautiful songs. And it is also true that in Brazil, night leaps out quickly like a bullfrog, just as it leapt quickly out of the bag in the beginning of time. The night flowers suddenly open their petals at dusk. As they do, the owl and the tiger begin their hunt for food. The beasts and birds and insects of the night begin to sing their gentle chorus. And when the dark, cool blanket of night covers everything, the people of the earth take their rest.
Please unmute to clap.
You're about to unmute. Well done.
Thank you so much for reading and sharing that story.
Thanks. That's African background that was brought to Brazil. So that's pretty cool.
Thank you. Any reactions, questions about that story?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question. This is a traditional tale in Brazil? A traditional Brazilian folktale.
Well, the story is that this story is not told. This story specifically in this book is not the traditional story, but the idea of Iemanjá and the dark and the light and the celebration that they have in the New Year's is sort of a tradition in many parts of Brazil.
It's lovely, lovely, lovely story.
Thank you.
I wanted to say that I just love stories, and that's what it was to me. It was a love story. It was absolutely beautiful. It was very gripping from the beginning to the end, and lots of detail, lots of animals. It was just amazing. I absolutely loved it. So thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Well, just to sorry, Sandra.
No, please go on.
No, just relating to what Caroline said before in terms of people forgetting their stories and forgetting their rituals. Here in Brazil, there's something very similar happening with this culture, because here in Brazil is a sort of a religion for some people, and till nowadays there are lots of problems concerning these characters, these entities, and I really like this story, such as Talita. I think we should start talking more about it and really teaching kids and teaching the new generation, because it's something very rich in our country, and people sometimes they do not take it seriously, or they do not like talking about it, and it's oral story, so it's amazing. I really liked.
Thanks, Marina. Sandra?
Oh, I was just going to say I really liked a lot of the adjectives used to describe night, and they were quite positive as opposed to sort of Western concept of night. I was, other than when the servants opened the bag and the creatures came out, you had just when the daughter, the wife, had described night being like a cool, dark blanket, or after a storm, or when you stop crying. It was just sort of positive ways to describe night and darkness, as opposed to it being negative. And I really, really like that. I didn't expect those words. The choice of adjectives to describe something that I guess culturally in the West anyway, it's associated with not so beautiful descriptive words. So it was really lovely how you painted the story and made night really, really attractive. So yeah.
Thanks, Sandra.
I was going to say, as I was listening to you, I wondered where the story was rooted in, because my wife is an Umbanda practitioner, actually, here in LA, so in California, and so I hear certain stories that have that flavor, that kind of feeling of coming from the Yoruba traditions, and so it was very interesting to hear a different telling of a similar story, to then hear how the oral storytelling tradition transforms with each telling, but also just how rooted in nature it is, and the for me, when I hear a story that's so rooted in nature, I am reminded how much I am part of nature. And so it was really that I felt that pulling me out in that way. So thank you for sharing it like that.
Thanks for your comments. Thank you. Yeah, I also thoroughly enjoyed it. I recently watched a kind of a documentary series about the history of was it street dance? That's it. And they went to Brazil as one of the locations, and they got a bit into the history, the African kind of history. And there was a little bit of storytelling there, and I became quite interested in it. So it was great for you to share that story with us. Right, let's last two. Charlynne?
It's me. Okay. This story is called Shallow's Strange Bargain. It is written by Ralph Prince, and it is a Caribbean folklore tale. I'm going to do kind of like I'm going to do it more in the storytelling tradition than in the reading a story tradition, even though I have written down bits of the story. And just like a background of this story, when I was younger, I mean, in the Caribbean, old people generally do campfire type tales. It's more around a coal pot than a campfire, but we do campfire type tales. And my dad is notorious for his storytelling skills, mainly because it's always linked to something that he wants to teach us to not do. And this is one of the story that he told me when I was younger. And at the end of the story, I will tell you why. Okay, so lean in close, because this story I'm about to tell you is a secret. And I must tell you, this story is true. Shallow lived in Glentis village. Many who knew him called him Long Belly Shallow. And I'm going to tell you why. They call him Long Belly Shallow because Shallow, him love his food too much. Others who know him, however, would say that Shallow was master fife player. That's because he was the best fife player in the village. He made his fife himself using his secret method. And when you hear him play the music of that fife, it was the sweetest music in the world. Shallow used to go out into the mountains for him to do his farming. And one afternoon when he was returning home, there was rain upon rain upon rain. Rain was falling so heavy that Shallow thought he would never reach home. He had to stop to look for shelter. Light come, light go. Shallow still trying to shelter rain. Before long, he began to feel miserable. So miserable that the only thing he could think of doing was playing his fife. So he took out his fife and he played. He played all of the songs that he could remember. Songs of the fishermen in Glentis village, sad songs, merry songs. And the more and more and more he played, the sweeter the music started to seem. But suddenly, Shallow stopped because out of nowhere in front of him, a man just seemed to appear. And he didn't know where this man came from. He said, "Your music is so sweet. I come from down yonder just to hear you play it." Shallow asked, "But who are you, sir? Who are you?" "Everyone knows me," the man replied. "Everyone knows me." Shallow looked at him closely to see if he really knew him. The man seemed neither young nor old. In fact, he seemed ageless, but his skin was red and he looked like a cooked lobster. Shallow wasn't sure he knew this man. He said, "I never seen you before. I never seen you before." "You will soon remember who I am, Shallow. You will soon remember me." Rain was still falling, so the man said, "Shallow, you want to come home with me to shelter from the rain?" Shallow accepted and follows the man down into the mountain. As he walks through, a stone opens up in one of the mountains, and down, 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 down they go. It becomes so hot that Shallow soon forget that it was raining. His clothes get dry. His skin starts to sweat. He even had to take off his shirt. Shallow turned around and looked at the man. The man was not even sweating. Shallow's wondering, but what's going on here? Anyways, he sit down because the man said, take a seat. Shallow keeps waiting for the man to offer him food. But nothing is happening. So Shallow say, do you have any food, sir? The man said, I was waiting for you to ask me for some food, Mr. Shallow. Here, he puts an empty calabash on the table and said to Shallow, say what you want to eat, and this magic calabash will give it to you. But you must say it in this rhyme. If you want pepper pot, you have to say, calabash, calabash, food time come. Bring me pepper pot and give me some. As soon as the words were uttered, the calabash was filled with pepper pot. Like magic. Shallow stared in surprise. He didn't know what to make of this, but the food was looking so good, Shallow just couldn't help himself. Shallow say, well, I have to eat this pepper pot. So Shallow eat, and he eat, and he ate until he was full. Have a belly full, the man say. Shallow eat, and he eat, and he ate until his belly was full. Then the man said to Shallow, I heard you playing your fife and it was so sweet. Your fife is so beautiful. The music is so nice. Can I borrow your fife? I just want to try it. Shallow, full belly, say, of course you can borrow my fife. The man played the fife and his music was beautiful, but never as sweet as Shallow's. Then the man kept touching the fife and saying, it's such a beautiful fife. It's so lovely and the music so good. He said, Shallow, I seen how you watching my calabash. I can see you enamored with my calabash. How about we make a trade? Shallow say, a trade? What you mean? He said, yes, a bargain. How about we make a bargain? Shallow say, but what bargain? He said, it's a bargain, but we must keep it a secret. This bargain, if you want, I'm going to give you my calabash. If you give me your fife. Now, Shallow make the fife himself, and Shallow was like, I don't want to give this man my fife, but the calabash can give me the food. Shallow thought, he thought. The man said, come on, Shallow. Even in hard times, you will always be able to get what you want with this calabash. You can always get another fife, but never another calabash like this one. Think of the fungi and saltfish. Think of the dumplings and pork. Think of the rice and meat, the ackee and sauce. All for the asking, all for the taking, all for the eating. Now, Shallow had to think, but he didn't have to think very hard because Shallow, him love his food. Shallow agreed to keep it a secret and take the calabash. Shallow go back home. Soon in his village, there was a famine. All the people around getting meg. Meg means they're getting thin. Shallow is the only one that's staying fat. All the people in the village wondering, but what's going on with Shallow? But nobody want to ask Shallow. One day, Shallow friend Zaki, who is his next door neighbor, decide to come round and say, Shallow, I smell some nice callaloo you cooked there. But how come you're not giving me any food to eat? Charlotte respond, come on, Zaki, my food too poor for you. Zaki said, too poor? The callaloo smells so nice and you're telling me too poor? All of us in the village, they're getting tin, and you're telling me your food too poor? Charlotte started to feel sorry for Zaki. He knew Zaki from a long time. He knew that Zaki was a good man and had to look after all of his children. So he said, you know what, Zaki? It's fine. Bring your bucket. I go give you some food. He took out the calabash and he put it on the table. He said, calabash, calabash, food time come. Bring me callaloo and give me some. And as soon as he uttered those words, the calabash full up with callaloo. Now Zaki on the other side, eyes open wide. He's shocked. He said, so you mean to tell me, Charlo, you Obia man now? Now Obia man means that he's doing evil. He said, no, I ain't no Obia man. He said, but you just bring out calabash. You just say some words. Food just appear. You are Obia man now. He said, no, I'm not no Obia man. Let me tell you the story of this calabash. So he said, but let me tell you, Zaki, you have to keep it a secret, you know, because it's a secret. So he whispered to him the story. He said, I was walking down one day and it was raining so bad. And this man appeared out of nowhere and he traded me my fife for this calabash. He said, this calabash is what's been keeping me fat, so because anything I want to eat, anytime I want to eat it, all I have to do is say these words and it's full of whatever I want. Now Zaki sitting down listening to his story start laughing. Zaki said, so is that deal you make with the devil? He said, no, the man not a devil. He said, describe the man for me. Charlo now start to think, should I tell this man this story, boy? I already say too much there. But he decided he already done gone so far, he just have to say, well, he was red skin. Now, when he say red skin, Charlo didn't mean that he was red like a lobster. Charlo was like, if I tell him he red skin, in the Caribbean, red skin just mean that he light. So he say, him red skin. And he took me down into the mountain and he give me the calabash. Zaki say, ah, the devil that. Anyways, Zaki left with his bucket full of callaloo. Zaki say, it's all right. I won't tell anybody your secret. Me don't want anybody to know you Obia man dealing with the devil anyways. So Zaki left and Zaki go down to his house. Next morning, Zaki and his wife and his 10 children rock up on the house of Charlo. They come in, they knock the door. Mr. Charlo, open for us. Mr. Charlo, open the door. No answer. They walk around, they peer into the window. Nobody can be seen. They walk to the back of the house. They look under the mat for the key. No key. Nothing to be heard. No Charlo could be found anywhere. They say, even today, the people of Glenties village still looking for Charlo. But Charlo was never to be seen again. Thank you.
Unmute for your applause. Sorry, I'm up. Thank you so much. Lovely, lovely. Reactions, feelings.
I'm going to start. That is a damn powerful story to tell. And you as an orator, astonishing.
Thank you.
You have sat at the knee of your father and you have learnt well.
I have indeed.
You really, truly have.
Thank you.
Just as I don't know many stories from the Caribbean, but I do know the style of storytelling, and that particular one for me, as I'm the moral tale that is embedded in that story is so needed over and over today in our world, and I think it's really important to keep telling it. Thank you that I got to hear it from you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
That was amazing. It's not just the story; it's the way you're a proper storyteller. You've got the delivery. It's lovely. Yeah, it was amazing to listen to you. This is a story that your dad told you.
Yes.
Oh, that's lovely. See, that's just what we're talking about earlier on. This need to preserve stories which have been passed through generations in certain areas of the world or whatever, not allow them to go missing, because that's what's going to happen. That was great.
Yeah.
Just like what everyone else said, it's the way your delivery of the story, like you played all the characters and you did all the voices, and you even your facial expressions, you were every character. It was wonderful to listen to and watch. It was absolutely encapsulating. So just, yeah, you're a great storyteller. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I ask 2 questions? What's a Carabash exactly? I guess it's a pot of some sort.
It's kind of a bowl. It's made out. So a calabash tree is a tree in the Caribbean.
Oh,
and it's kind of like a round. It looks, I don't even know, like a coconut, but not a coconut. It looks like a watermelon, actually. That's how I describe it. It looks like a watermelon, but it's hard on the outside. And what people do is they cut it down from the tree, they cut it in half, and then they take the middle out and they put it to dry, and that turns into a bowl.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of them are really large and some of them are small. Yeah.
And a fife?
A fife, it's kind of like a flute.
Pipe of something. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, a pipe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also have a question. You told us that you're going to say why your dad used to tell you this story.
Yeah, yes. My dad is, one of the things that I'm happy that I did learn from my dad is storytelling, actually. And my dad, like I've wrote the story down because I actually found it online after. It's not a Dominican story. It's an Antiguan story. But when my dad told it, he didn't tell it from the internet or from a book. It was oral storytelling. And my dad would always do this thing where if we at home, I'm one of 7 children. I'm the third of 7 children. And if we were fighting for any reason at home, my dad would link it to whatever story he was going to tell next. And sometimes he would make it up, and sometimes he would choose stories that was already there. And this particular one was myself and my sisters. We were fighting for the biggest piece of chicken in the pot at the time. And I think my brother also used our dumplings every time. So for me, it was a big thing. I was always crying about food. And my dad was like, you see, I remember him saying, like later on, him saying to my mom, Catherine, you see this thing there, this child, she too greedy. You know, but he didn't tell that to me then, but he told me this story. And obviously when Caribbean people tell stories, there are always morals behind the story that we then have to pick out. And so there are lots of different morals in this one. But for me at the time, the most important one was the one about food. And obviously that's the one that my dad chose to focus on. So, yeah.
Thanks for the explanation.
Charlynne.
Hi, Kim.
Charlynne.
Yeah.
Hi, girlfriend. I love the story.
Thank you.
It's great seeing you. I love the story because I know a lot of Caribbean stories, so I can relate really well. I thought you were going to jump through the screen. It was so intriguing. It was like, wow, I love this story so much. So thank you, girlfriend. I needed to hear this today. I mean, Karina, about 10 minutes before this happened, she said, Kim, jump on. And it's just been so brilliant. I've absolutely loved it. And your children at school, I think I've said this to you before, are lucky. Your department, your whole school are lucky to have you.
Thank you.
And
I often tell stories, by the way.
I can imagine. You don't read them stories. You just tell them stories, and it's better. They become better writers.
Yeah.
So I loved it anyway. Thank you, girlfriend.
Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Thanks for all of those.
Oh,
All of those comments. Is there another one?
no, I just wanted to say sorry, Karina. Yeah, it's just I connected so late. Yeah,
That's okay. No problem.
wanted to say something, but it's yeah.
Okay. Did you say you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on Charlynne's fairy tale. Story. I mean, I'm glad because I joined literally 25 to. I was just busy today, but I'm glad I did it because I thought, oh, maybe it's not worth connecting so late. But I'm glad I did it because even I didn't hear this story from the beginning, but I just loved it so much, and I could feel how Charlynne connected with our hearts so much. I had the feeling that she was actually sitting next to me, because I was thinking, oh, it's a pity we don't have this meeting in person, like not just online. But the way Charlynne told the story was like, I felt like she was next to me. She connected so well with us through words, and she put so much heart and soul that I felt like she was literally next to me sitting and just comforting my soul. This was amazing, Charlynne. Thank you so much. So I don't regret. It was so late, but I joined it. I'm so happy.
Thank you, Agnieszka.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Thank you, Agnieszka. I was just saying that in the storytelling, we have the story and we have the telling, the kind of performance part of it that can really engage the audience. We did actually start about 10 minutes later than planned, so I hope that you can stay with us for the last reader, Aaliyah. Are you ready? It's over to you. I hope everyone can stay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'd like to preface this by saying I realize that all the stories everyone's told so far today have been about passing on traditions that they've received in some way. And what I'm realizing is that my story is about me attempting to preserve a tradition that I haven't really received, but that I imagine is there. Like the generations before me had this storytelling tradition that you all have, but that has been fractured because people have been displaced from their homes, they've been refugees, they've been immigrants and so on. And so there's just a place where they've lost it. And I'm the first generation born of immigrants who didn't have the ability to maintain their history. So I'm attempting to recapture it. Ma! That, it's called Recipe for God, and it's written by me. Ma! That YouTube video you sent me really helped to explain how to make the dough. I'm starting to cook my first batch of mani now. I pressed send on the voice message and put my phone down. I had at least 3 hours to fill before she responded from the other side of the world. I returned my attention to the hot iron tawa on the stovetop. Finding this shallow, concave disc of iron with its fat wooden handle in a local Indian grocery shop had been such a moment of pure delight that I had done a happy dance there and then. I had no idea that my hitherto deeply suppressed inner Indian woman was such a giddy creature. I picked up the next chapati from the pile and clumsily practiced the motion of throwing the soft, flat disc of dough from palm to palm in order to dust off the excess flour before casting it unevenly onto the tawa to cook. As I watched the surface of the crinkly roti be stripped of its moistness and start to bubble, a memory bubbled up in my mind's eye of Nuri auntie trying to teach me how to make mani when I was 11 years old. So then you start to roll out the atta like this. She had torn off a small lump from the roll of soft dough, expertly rolled it between her palms into a smooth ball, and had flattened it into a dish of flour next to her left hand. She deftly flipped the squished thing, pressed it down again, placed it on the counter in front of her, and picked up her rolling pin. I can remember being utterly fascinated by the rhythm of her fingers as they moved, and the bright feeling of awe as the dusted patty gave way to the pressure of the wood rolling over it and spun itself around. How did she do that? No, Auntie, how do you make it go round by itself like that? Ah, that comes with practice. See here, I'm pushing this vellum down with this hand and I'm rolling it with this hand. That makes it turn as it gets bigger and make sure it is still a circle. Some people make rotis by rolling one way, then turning it 90 degrees and rolling again. Their ones turn out square. But we have never made square mani. Ours are always round. Oh, okay. I filed that piece of information away for later use. Now, watch how it cooks. She threw the dough onto the tawa. First, the top will start to dry out like this. I watched as the color of the dough darkened and it shrunk slightly. Then, see these little bubbles that are coming up? Yes, I nodded. These are what tell you that it is cooked enough underneath. Now you turn it over. She lifted an edge with the tips of her fingers, flicked her wrist, and landed it back on the tawa, top side down. Immediately, parts of the mani began to puff up. She pressed it back down with a folded tea towel, then let go. And I gasped as the whole thing inflated like a balloon. She must have been watching my little face light up, because she said, when it puffs up like that, it means the mehman who are coming will be very hungry. I frowned in confusion. I hadn't spent much time around people who spoke my mother tongue, Kutchi, so there were lots of words I didn't understand. No, Auntie, what does mehman mean? Oh, it means guest. If you're going to be a good Indian girl, you should remember that every mehman who enters a house is Bhagwan and should be treated with respect. And before you ask, Bhagwan means God. I smiled and said, I know that one. The slightly burnt smell of the half-cooked dough snapped me out of my reverie, and I quickly picked up the edge of the flatbread with some tongs and flipped it. Small patches of scorching peppered the wrinkled surface, but it was fine. That would add to the flavour and texture. Eventually, I wanted to be able to pick up the mani with my fingers like my aunt and my mum did, but that would take more practice than I had done yet. I mused on how much time had passed since that day, and how as I grew older, I had vehemently rejected the notion of being a typical Indian girl making chapatis in the kitchen. I felt a hot wave of shame and sadness rush through my body, a tightening in my chest, and tears starting to prick at my eyes. I thought about the fights I had had with my mum about it. I realized now that she had only wanted to teach me how to cook food so I could nourish myself and anyone I cared to cook for. I had denied her the joy of seeing me learn the skill. In that moment, I decided that she didn't have to miss out. I could share my learning journey with her by video, and she'd be able to keep them to watch again when she was missing me. I picked my phone back up and started a video recording. Hi, Ma. I decided that even if you're not here beside me as I make my first proper batch of money, that doesn't mean you have to miss out on it. I pressed the button to flip to the rear camera of the phone. Look, here's the first one, just about ready to turn over again. As you can see, I messed it up as I threw it down, so it hasn't puffed up at all. I gave it a couple of seconds, then took the chapati off the tawa, placing it into the waiting tea towel and folded the edges over to trap the heat in. The realization dawned on me that I wouldn't be able to throw the next mani between my palms while holding the phone. I turned off the burner on the stove and looked around for somewhere to prop it up to get the optimal shot of the action. After a couple of failed attempts, I found a wire rack to stand the phone up in at the right angle to record and relit the burner to heat the tawa again. As I waited for it to get back to temperature, I reflected on how much more comfortable I felt handling the logistics for setting up a recording than I did with the actual cooking. Fragments popped up of memories of my mum calling me into the kitchen to help and learn to cook, interspersed with memories of setting up our first computer in the living room and of tidying up the wires at the back of the TV after installing the new DVD player and making sure the VHS player still worked for my mum. The tears from earlier resurfaced. And this time, I could feel the anger at the injustice of being an Indian girl born in the Western world, having to do things my dad should have been doing, yet still being expected to conform to the Eastern ideals of what a woman should be. The anger touched into the territory of rage, and I became aware of the tangle of emotions buried underneath it. The age-old fight between the East and the West. No wonder it had taken me so long to try doing this. I blinked away the tears and set myself back to the task at hand. The untangling would have to wait until the cooking was done. Okay, I had to stop the last video so I could set up to be hands-free, which now you can see I am. I smiled at the camera, then turned to aim the second mani at the tawa and landed it wrinkle-free. Bullseye! I punched the air in triumph. Again, I watched the bubbles, smelt the papery smell of dough drying as it cooked, and flipped it at the right moment. Little pockets of air started to inflate, but they didn't join up to rise all the way, and I felt a twinge of frustration at my failure. My inner Indian woman simultaneously stamped her feet and hung her head in shame as I moved the now cooked mani into the open tea towel and folded it back up again. I left the camera rolling as I picked up the last round of dough. Maybe this one, Hummer? I asked out loud as I passed the dough between my palms, getting ready to aim again. Third time lucky. I threw the disc perfectly and waited as the bubbles began to form. I looked at the camera, crossed my fingers where Mum would see them, and flipped the mani over. Yes! My inner Indian woman started her happy dance at the sight of the balloon blowing up in front of me, and I rushed to grab the other tea towel to tamp it down with. Look! It puffed up this time, Mama! I pushed the top back down, then let it go. It inflated again, and a little hiss of steam started to escape from one side. I gave it a few moments more, then took it off the heat and placed it on top of the last two. Done for the day. A warm feeling spread across my chest as I allowed myself to feel the relief of this moment and the joy that I could share it with my mum several time zones away. The Western woman inside of me smiled as I ended the recording and sent it to her. Perhaps it was possible to have access to both worlds after all.
Please unmute to clap. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Aaliyah. Reactions, feelings, questions.
Wow. We've been talking about stories, traditional stories, ways of transmitting within a culture, within a group, values which remain values, the same, the universal quality throughout generations, throughout even the world. But you've turned on its head the theme of the evening by, in your story, actually tackling the issue of when traditions are not always the ones that you want to carry forward necessarily, or you have got a conflicted relationship with those. You're trapped between the two, and partly trying to break free, partly trying to find roots of where you've come from. It's amazing. That was very moving, actually. Really very moving. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was lovely.
I really enjoyed your story so much. Before I was a teacher, I was a chef, and I made lots of bread and naan bread and chapatis and got things wrong and tried again. But it just made me think about my own childhood, about traditions, how, your parents try and get the traditions in and skills. And if you're mixed, sometimes that can be difficult. If you have a white mother and she can't plait the hair, and then there's the cooking side of it. The dad can do it, but the wife should be doing it. And there was all those kinds of issues. And then you go to your family, your cousins, and you can't cook rice. You can't plait hair. There was all them issues in a nice way. But your story reminded me of some of the things where it was not my fault. I've got the grandmother that teaches me this way, the Irish way, and I like that. And I've got my Trinidadian side when I go there. Well, why isn't this happening? If you can get what I'm trying to say, everybody. That story just reminded me of it. Sometimes parents are doing their best to get the skills in, the culture in, and it doesn't always work out. You grab it when you can. When you're older, you learn, you meet people, especially from the Caribbean, because I met a lot of West Indians, so I was drawn to them to try and learn some skills of hair plaiting and cooking. And it just reminded me your story. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like the traditional, even though you were sort of modernizing a story that could be or a story that's passed on. You put the modern elements of the, I love the VCR reference, and think those of a certain age that know about VCR, but I love how you put that modern reference right in the middle of this journey of this character's journey arc, and so we're following the journey of the character, and then you bring us to the modern time, and so we can really feel what that character is actually going through, even though we've maybe never tried to make chapati before, but we can see the push and pull of the East and West, or culture and tradition and modernity, but also I love the fact that there was the emotional part in the middle where I think touched everybody, because we could probably all relate in our own individual ways, but also the character came almost full circle to trying to find a way to balance both the conformity, quote unquote, of the tradition, but as well as their modern existence. And I love that character journey, and also the I guess issues in between. It's like a real story. The bubbles weren't joining up, it was burning, it was so there was the conflict within that story. So it literally followed a typical traditional story, 3-act story, but in a very sentimental, modern way about sharing histories and sharing, traditions. So I loved that. I don't know how you did it, but you did it. It was incredible. Great talent. Brilliant.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. I think it's really, I'm glad that came across, because that's really one of the things that is, when I'm saying about preserving histories that you don't necessarily have access to, I think it's really important to acknowledge that there is this conflict between, I'm never going to be able to learn to cook Indian food in the way that my mum did. My mum learned it when she was growing up in Uganda, but so she didn't even learn Indian food from India. She learned it in Uganda, where she was born. And so, there's just many generations of being displaced, which then gets displaced by modernity. And so I think there is something really important that I think everyone is grappling with on some level. So I'm glad that came across. Thank you.
I really, really enjoyed that as well. And whilst you were reading the story, I was kind of putting myself in place of it. I mean, I'm from the Caribbean, and my family's cooking tradition is a big thing. I mean, today I was doing baking, and one of the things I did when I started my baking was I recorded a video and I put it on my stories, and it was along the lines of me saying that I'm going to use my mom's recipe, where you put a little bit of this and a little bit of that and some of this and some of that, and I sent that to my sisters, and they were all laughing, because actually all of us, my sisters and I, all of us have that, that experience of being in my grandmother's kitchen and my mom's kitchen, and having that mom trying to teach us how to do something, and sometimes we get it and sometimes we don't, so I really kind of identified with the being in the kitchen side, and it took me back to days when I would wake up early and my grandmother would be baking, and I would be there, just waiting to lick the bowl. But even though I wasn't kind of getting everything, knowing that now I can see that even though I didn't take in the recipes and the ingredients, that now I know them without knowing how I know them. So, that part of the story came through for me, but also the part that because I'm living in the UK now and all of my family are back home, there is that kind of struggle that now that some of the recipes are going to be modernized by myself. And when I pass them down, they're going to lack that flavor that my parents used to put into it, and knowing the struggle of that yes, knowing that, like Kim said, you have to learn how to do certain things like plait hair and cook rice, but also knowing that when you try to modernize it yourself, it's never quite right, but sometimes having to reconcile with yourself, saying that actually I'm making it what's right for me, and I really got that from your story, so thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for all of those comments. I mean, I got a lot from it. There are just so many different elements, and people have already, touched on it. Mother-daughter relationship, passing on of cultural traditions, food traditions, cultural conflict, East versus West, identity, dealing with multiple identities. There's a lot in there. And all of that resonates. And I really I think Sandra mentioned it as well. It sounds like a story. The video, the use of the video at the beginning and the end, because the video, you can capture a moment, you can capture history, but you can also re-record it, you can rewrite it. And I think that there's some power in that, that you can take control. So yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I'd like to say to all of you, this is, I think, the second time I've read this. This is like a first draft of this story, and it's the second time I've read it out loud to a group of people, and all of the comments are so helpful to me to be able to refine this story down again, and in reading it out loud. So what I've really enjoyed about today's session is having the opportunity to read it out loud. There's something so powerful about inhabiting a story again through the real way that stories are meant to be told, which is orally. you know, and shared in community. Like that's the truth of stories, I think. And so thank you so much, Karina, for creating a space where that could be done, and for everyone being here to receive it. It's been really powerful for me.
I agree. It's a special moment. I thank everyone for being here, for sharing their stories, for listening to those stories, and making comments. It's the end of our time, unfortunately. I'm going to have to say good night, but for sure, we will have to do something like this again in the future.
I have one question. Will you be sharing the recording with everyone?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, it will record onto my computer now, but I will either upload it today or tomorrow, and I will email you directly. Some people are, let's say, in the Share Your Story community, and I know, Aaliyah, you're new. So I have your email, so I'll be able to just send it directly to you and to everyone. I can also just send it directly by email. And I think that's it. Thank you so much. And I know that somebody arrived very late, Nazir. Thank you for joining us. I know that you're here from Pakistan. And Agnieszka, I know that you did have an idea, or you wanted to share a story, but maybe next time we can do that. Agnieszka, you need to unmute.
No, I mean, I had two things quite short. Like I have a poem story and actual story. They're short, but I think it's too late for everyone. I don't know.
It's quite late now, but let's do this again.
Yeah.
I want to say Happy Christmas in advance and Happy New Year. And I hope to speak to all of you somehow soon.
Thank you, Karina.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
This has been lovely.
Happy Christmas to everyone.
Happy Christmas.
It's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's me and you, Karina. Karina.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Karina. Well, I know you're probably. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I cannot believe you invited me.
Hold on one second.
Shall I come off?
No, hold on one sec. Nazir, I'm going to remove you from. Are you there, Nazir? Do you want to unmute? Okay, thank you, Nazir. I'm going to ask you to leave now, if that's okay.